Hello everyone, it's us again. I'm just
Uh,
here to say this. We have made it. The TMNT 2014 rewrite. Sorry I keep on delaying this. There were just several things that were going on I just had no control over.
yeah.
I hope you all can forgive me. But if you want to hear my overall thoughts on the movie, it's not terrible, it's far from the
No.
worst.
That's
Nothing can beat TMNT 3 out of the Turtles in time.
yeah,
Because that one was far worse.
yeah.
But enough wasting time. Let's just move on.
Right.
And I am here to give shoutouts to Animal X23, Ray W. Hickman, and Randomizer 209 for inspiration. I'd like to shout these guys. And if any of you are watching this, please give this a like.
Yeah.
Now, essentially, we're reorganizing the plot. Literally, the plot made no sense.
It did make sense.
Like, seriously, Shredder wanting to infect the entire city of New York with a plague, that fits an episode of one of the shows better, honestly.
Yeah.
But about third, and I try to stick with what we got. I try to stick within the plot, like what I tried doing with Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. But let's just move on.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
Now, the first 5 minutes would take place in the past with, young April spending time with the turtles in her father's research lab at TCRI, not TGRI. Like, it's called TCRI, not TGRI.
Right.
Her father, in the meantime, is taking notes until he is interrupted by a coworker who informs him that the progress on the turtles has been taking too long and has been deemed a failure by their boss, Baxter Stockman, replacing Eric Sachs.
Right. Yeah.
And he'll also be played with the same guy who played him in the first movie, who I felt like was wasted as Baxter.
Right.
I feel bad for him as Baxter, honestly. He deserved better.
Me too.
But let's just move on.
You going to the bathroom?
A Kirby O'Neill, as a reference to the 2012 series, soon then just asks his colleague to give him the time and date to when they can continue. The turtles, April, still in the room, overhears them and quickly just puts all the turtles in a glass tray. While this is going on, the colleague then tells Kirby that there is something else he has to tell him, but he can't do it in here while they are still in the lab. Kirby is initially suspicious, but agrees to meet his coworker after their shift is over. Only then does he notice April and the turtles are gone.
Yeah.
Even though the whole thing about April being the owner of the turtles made no sense, because it was just a random kid who owned the turtles in many versions of their backstories. It was never someone they knew until years later.
Right.
We then cut to April running through the facility where she passes several other animals being experimented on, and once she escaped the facility, she, of course, drops the container, and, the turtles go into the sewer layers where they are met by a rat. And obviously, we all know who this is, Splinter.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to him in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
We then get to the same sequence where she is spying on a illegal transaction at the docks, and instead of the Foot Clan, this transaction would be committed by a street gang known as the Purple Dragons, who are rivals with the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
I just, it's a shot that we haven't seen them in the movies yet.
It is a shot.
Now, after a brief moment where it looks like April, played by Jessica Biel, because believe it or not, she wanted to play April in this movie, but never got the chance. It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
This starts to remind me of Daisy Ridley and how she didn't want her character Rey to be with Kylo Ren in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I just feel bad for her in this case.
Me too.
But enough Star Wars talk. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's just move on. Well, April is spotted. The turtles make their move, and instead of one of them picking up and swatting the whole group with a shipping container, the group will fall silent as they hear faint squeaking noises, only to panic when they see someone drop a container above them as it was untied from the crane, and then the lights are taken out. And all April can hear are shouts of confusion, fear, and sounds of fighting. When the sounds have all died down, she walks out and pulls out her flashlight to see all the gang members being and bruised on the floor. At first, she is in mild shock until she hears something in the distance. Quickly, she rushes to see what it is, only to barely be able to catch a glimpse of what seemed to be a humanoid figure jumping over the fence in the distance. And of course, we cut to April interviewing one of the members in prison who was at the scene with her. Unfortunately, she can't get much out of him and just leaves. And of course, we also get introduced to Vern outside, still played by Will Arnett.
Yeah.
He's waiting and patiently reminds her that they are running late to the office. She tells him to shop, and then they drive off at the Channel 6 office, where her boss, Bruce Thompson, played by Bruce Campbell, is patiently waiting for any updates about her story. She informs him that she hasn't made much progress, which disappoints Bruce. April hastily adds that she saw what appeared to be a vigilante who disrupted the business transaction of the Purple Dragons, and that, given enough time, she could track him down. Bruce is hesitant but reluctantly gives April another chance, accompanied by Vern, in a warning saying that if she bugs this up again, at best she will be demoted or at worst fired. She nods and walks towards her office, but not before catching a news conference by Baxter Stockman, playing on one of the TVs in the office. In this conference, he announces that this company from now on will begin to transition from a genetic company to one that will specialize in spaceflight and interstellar research, and will be rebranded from TCRI to... No. And near the end of his announcement, he reveals that he plans to make a sizable donation to the New York City police force to help them with the grand crime wave once the broadcast has ended. April just turns off the TV and just walks off. The next scene, of course, is in her apartment. That scene's the same.
Yep.
And of course, her roommate is not just a random person. This would be Irma Langstrom.
Yeah.
She can still be played by the same actress. It doesn't matter. And of course, April would go into her room, and this would be like her conspiracy report in her bedroom roll that shows she believes that Baxter was in some way responsible for the lamp accident and killed her father, which is another change to the story. Since, in the movie, April was unaware of this until Sachs told her the reason for this change is to fix one of the other problems that the fans have with this movie, which is that April is more of a focused character instead of the Turtles.
Yeah.
Doesn't that remind you of which is just like the Transformers movies when I think about it.
Right.
And this can be fixed by just giving her a stronger motivation early on. After she finishes her research, she decides to go to bed where the camera then zooms in on the part of a conspiracy board that directly links to Baxter Stockman and the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
We then transition to Baxter in his office where we learn in exchange for his generous donation to the NYPD, Stockman is then granted access to the various police reports once he is done. He sends a message to a security informing them that he would like to arrange a meeting with an old colleague. And we have the scene where we first get introduced to the Shredder and he's training once his opponent is beaten. And Karai enters the room and informs him about Stockman.
Yeah.
Now I want to bring something up about Shredder. We will know about his backstory, but something is different. What is it? I am just going to put this out and say this. Shredder's backstory would be more of a mix between the 2012 series, the IDW comics, and a bit of the Mirage comics because John Fusco initially pitched his own reboot of the Turk movie reboot where it was where the Turtles would be more of a darker film and would bring the Turtles back to their roots in the Mirage comics. And this movie was trying to be like the Mirage comics when I think about it. It just makes sense. It just does.
Yeah.
And of course, Karai informs Saki that Stockman would like to see him. Stockman enters and informs him about the recent string of attacks performed by the vigilantes who have disrupted many of his illegal business transactions and offers him a job to take care of it. And I could imagine Shredder threatening Stockman the same way he did in the 2012 series. Stockman! What do you think you're doing? Do a better job!
Well, I just need you to handle this job, Saki.
Huh. You're my... Well, if they all can't do it, I'll do it myself. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Crystal clear, sir.
Good. And then Stockman leaves.
Yeah.
We then have the next scene, which is the New York City subway at night, the hostage situation. That's all the same. But unlike in the actual movie, where the Turtles are witnessing unfolding on the news is cut, instead it's April who discovers the events on the news, rushes over. Another big difference is that Karai is not there, but instead one of the gunmen that surrounded the vigilantes to come out of hiding, or they will start executing the hostages. This gunman could be anyone. This could be a human version of Bebop and Rocksteady, or could be... Hey, those could actually be human versions of Dog Pound and Fish Face, both played by Dave Bautista and Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
The scene where the Turtles attack, kill the lights, and pick up the gunman, that all goes out the same. However, when the Turtles are attacked by foot ninjas, which give them more trouble, eventually they appear to win, and then just as quickly, they vanish, leaving behind only the unconscious hostage takers. Meanwhile, April arrives just when the hostages are released, and then catches a glimpse of familiar humanoid figures leaping over one of the rooftops. The following events play out just as they did. Doesn't matter. Of course, she climbs up the fire escape in her desperation and makes some progress on her story. Forgets to turn off the flashlight of her camera. Caught by the Turtles. And this will be our first good look at the Turtles in this movie. The designs. No, I hate those designs. No.
Me too.
They are just uncanny valley.
Yeah.
And they remind me of Sonic's live action design. in the first trailer.
Yeah.
If you know what they're gonna look like, just go to my community post in the community section in the community section. Just need to bring that up. One difference in this scene is there aren't going to be any creepy lines from Michelangelo. Like, can you feel my shell tightening? Like, okay, I don't like those lines. I don't like them.
Me either.
It's like I'm sorry. It just sounds like a pedophile version of him. Like, I cannot stand pedophilia. Nah, sorry. Just calm down. Just calm down. Yeah, let's just get rid of all the creepy lines.
Yeah.
And with that said, the scene where Michelangelo tries and fails to calm April down, that scene's by taking off his mask. That's the same because it was actually funny. That
Yeah.
that scene's the same. Nothing changes.
Yeah.
And of course, she still faints. Afterwards, she recovers from her initial shock. The turtles introduce themselves properly and hand her phone back. She thanks them until she finds out all the data has been scrapped, which makes her furious and starts yelling at them. But then and Leonardo gives her a stern warning to not follow them any further, revealing that they know where she lives and her full name. In terms of the Turtles actors, I came up with these actors. I mean, with these choices. Leonardo, played by Dylan O'Brien. Raphael, played by Dacre Montgomery. Donatello, played by Ty Sheridan. And Michelangelo, played by Lucas Till.
Yeah.
Which our choices actually made last May. Coincidentally, because we're still in this May.
Right.
April, of course, would stay quiet for a bit and then pretends to agree after the turtles leave. The turtles arrive back at the lair. Michelangelo makes an offhand remark that the April name April O'Neil sounds familiar. The others initially dismiss his claims, saying that that's because they've seen her on the news, but deep down they all feel the same way. Another difference is that the turtles in this version don't wake up Splinter.
Right. Oh.
Now I know some of you may be thinking, why don't they wake him up?
Oh, well, because he's sleeping.
Yes, and if I were Splinter in this case, I'd be furious.
Yeah.
As I was saying, but at the same time, as this is happening, April arrives at her apartment, has a massive fit over having several months of work erased in just one night. It gets so bad that her neighbor tells her to shut up after that, and she finally calms down because, to quote SMBD12, aka Ben Perez from his ranking of the Shrek movies in September of 2021, excuse me, everyone, I need to scream on a pillow.
Yeah.
And of course, like what Ben did, she screams on a pillow. Sorry, that part was hilarious.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Now, almost completely relaxed, she glances at her conspiracy board, and her eyes fall on the newspaper article that covered the lab fire that killed her Kirby, her father, which causes all the memories with her and the turtles to flood. Back the next day at the Channel 6 office, April is nervous about telling Bruce that more than half of her work was deleted. This leads to a scene where, with a tense buildup at the communic release, as Bruce asks April to cover for a different reporter who was supposed to attend another conserve held by Baxter Stockman, but got sick at the last moment. That we then have the turtles. We cut to the turtles where they were having breakfast, and at first it's all casual banter until Splinter calmly enters the room, and they all go silent. Note here: Splinter is played by Hiroyuki Sanada.
Right.
Because you all wanted him to play Splinter here.
Yeah.
He, of course, would instantly know something is off, but he decides to play dumb for a while, for his own amusement. After they have finished their breakfast, he orders them to do some work and concentration exercises. And of course, we could get the same scene with the turtles guessing that Splinter is already onto them and decide to play silly. We get that same scene because it was actually one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
Me too.
And of course, they make silent vows to each other to not reveal what they've been up to. It's just the same. Just as well as the part where Michelangelo finally breaks when Splinter offers him supposedly a legendary pizza. And next, instead of April driving towards Stockman's home to Sack's estate, we cut to her attending Stockman's party where he announces that TCRI is scheduled to finish and launch their first rocket at the end of the year. On top of that, he announces that he also plans to cover the medical expenses of all the people who got injured by the hostage situation in the subway. After he is finished, April then starts to interview him. The interview starts off polite enough at first, until April starts asking more and more invasive questions until they both start to act more and more aggressive towards each other until she is told to leave by a bodyguard. After this, she gets back to her apartment where she does her best to recover as much of her research. But like in the original, Donatello hacks her laptop and tells her where and when to meet up if she would like to.
Yeah.
April goes to the specified address where she meets up again with the turtles, who tell her that she has to put this bag over her head. She initially refuses, but after they tell her that their master will answer all their questions, she relents the turtles and then leads her down the sewers and eventually take the back of her head. When they reach their lair, and for the first time in the movie, she sees Master Splinter, who welcomes her to the lair. The next scene takes place in Stockman's office, where he is annoyed by how the freak land has failed to take care of the vigilante. And Karai, who would have a similar design to the one she had in the 2003 series, actually, which kind of represented by Randomizer 209, points out that her ninjas were only prepared to deal with one vigilante and not four. She also adds that whatever these vigilantes were, they were not humans. Note, she's played with the same actress who played her in Out of the Shadows, Brittany Oshaby. Stockman is puzzled until she hands over a computer chip which shows the results of the DNA scan from the blood left on one of her ninja swords, which not only reveals that it is indeed not human blood, but there's also an unknown substance in the genetic code. Almost instantly, Baxter recognizes it and makes a quick phone call to Oroku Saki saying that their job just got a whole lot more complicated and that there appear to be some survivors of Project Renaissance. Some might say that using that word as a name for the project that create the mutagen, since on the surface, it does seem kind of dumb. But again, the turtles were named off of some of the famous Renaissance painters. Like,
Right.
what? That's kind of missing the point, if you ask me.
It is missing the point.
But we cut back to the scene of the turtles' lair. April is sitting at the table eating pizza with the teen with them, while Splinter tells them about their backstory. He reveals that when he where apparently Oroku Saki and Hamaru Yoshi were once best friends, like in the 2012 series, but they're not adopted brothers because they were not adopted brothers in the Michael Bay produced films.
They weren't.
So yeah, they're just best friends. And of
Yep.
course, Yoshi had a rivalry with Orokunagi, Saki's brother, because they fought over Tang Shen and Nagi died. I wouldn't say Splinter killed Nagi because in the Mirage comics, it almost made Yoshi the real villain because he killed Nagi, and that's why Shredder in the Mirage comics became evil.
Yeah.
Saki can still become evil because of how his brother's death affected him, but I'm just taking out the fact that Yoshi killed his brother. I'm taking that out. Because it just almost makes Yoshi the real villain in the Mirage comics.
Yeah.
Also, one difference is that at this time, Cry wasn't born yet, which could mean she is a little older than the Turtles, like in the 2012 series.
Yeah.
And of course, when Saki came to Hamato Yoshi and Tang Shen, a fight ensued like in the 2012 series, and he killed Yoshi and Shane like in most versions of the backstory, like the 2003 series, the 90s film, the Mirage comics, and the IDW comics.
Yeah.
And of course, their children were also killed, but I wouldn't show them being killed because they might be preteens at this point, and I don't want to push this for an R rating. I was not bothered by the PG-13 rating at all.
Me either.
And then afterwards, it's also revealed that when Splinter was being experimented on at a certain point, he started to grow more and more conscious of his surroundings until he could understand the scientists around him, but he still could not speak. Along with that, he was also subjected to training videos that taught him language, along with other videos demonstrating fighting skills and techniques provided by the Foot Clan. And of course, Hamato Yoshi can also be seen, and the rat Splinter would begin to recognize Yoshi.
Yeah.
And flashes can be seen too. This is also where he learned Japanese.
Yeah.
And of course, may not be the best direction, but at least it makes more sense than Splinter and the Turtles learning ninjutsu from a book that somebody flushed down the toilet.
Yeah.
That was stupid.
I was stupid.
It literally ruined the origin.
It does with the origin.
Now, back to where we were. Splinter at some point learned that the goal of Project Renaissance was to turn animals into mutants so they could perform tasks for humans, mostly heavy labor. While he didn't like many of the scientists, he recalls liking Kirby O'Neill, April's father, as he dreamed him the best. But one night, when Baxter was giving some unknown individuals a tour of the lab, since they weren't aware that he could understand them, he learned that Stockman planned to also sell the mutants to replace humans as soldiers of war, not just to foreign dictators or the US military, but criminal organizations like the Foot Clan and the Purple Dragons.
Yeah.
Since some animals have shorter lives than humans and just could be trained in a span of time.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the lifespan of a lion, most lions live up to like in their 30s or by the time they get to 15.
Right.
But back to where we were. This is also foreshadowing the next rewrite, which will be next week's.
Yeah.
April's confused, saying that she saw they were making cures for genetic diseases, but Splinter explains that it was just a cover story that Stockman made up for the public. He continues saying that the next day he made his escape into the sewers where he hoped to spend the rest of his life. That is until he slowly started to mutate over several months, until he became the mutant rat man that he is now. Occasionally, he would come back to the same sewers where the TCRI building was located until one day he found four baby turtles lying on the ground. And he took them,
Yeah.
which does echo back to the beginning. He grabbed them and raised them as they also started to mutate, where he would pass down all the skills he learned during his more mental conditioning. After Splinter finishes the story, he explains that while he had not seen April, he vividly remembers her father talking about her to his colleagues and that he recognizes her name on the news. April's initially overwhelmed, but compromises herself and thanks Splinter for sharing this, but asks why he wanted to see her in the first place. He then explains that it is both because his sons have told him that they remembered her, saving their lives, and also she is the last link he has to her father. And he also explains that she could be in mortal danger. She continues to that if she were to continue to follow them, and hoped that by explaining everything he knew to her she would start pursuing them and spare her and the turtles from that danger. She thanks him, but she states that she has dedicated too much of her life to uncovering the shady dealings of Baxter Stockman to stop. Now, and even she did stop, his company, the Foot Clan, would still continue to ruin the lives of others. The room remains silent until Splitter tells her that she's free to go, but begs her to leave him and the turtles out of her story. April then reluctantly agrees and leaves, but is stopped by Donatello and the others. Donnie Hand gives her a computer chip that contains all the data he scrapped from her phone. April, surprised by this show of trust, and gladly accepts. After Mikey asks if they can hang out together at some point to become proper friends, she smiles and says yes. That and pointed out that they know where to find her if they feel like it. She leaves the surface. The trolls return back to Splitter, who abruptly tells them that they have to leave their current home as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And of course, the turtles would. And of course, I could imagine Leonardo say this. But why? Why leave our current home, Splitter?
We have to leave our current home, Leonardo, because we are in danger.
This is all our fault, guys. If we didn't meet her, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, it is our fault.
But sometimes we have to make the hard choices.
Yeah.
And they all accept reluctantly.
Yeah.
Until Mikey asks, can they visit April again still? And Splitter says, no, which causes the turtles to argue back and forth. It's not fair that we can't see her, all because of what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
If only we hadn't gotten ourselves into this mess, all of this could have been prevented. But, I wish this didn't have to happen like this, Donnie. It's not fair.
Me too, Mikey.
And then Leonardo just tells them all to break it up by saying this. Silence!
Well, it's for our own good, guys.
And of course, Leonardo would take a deep breath.
It's for our own good, guys. Not the Splitters trying to protect us.
I know, we know, but we're trying to calm down. Thanks for telling us to silence. If it wasn't for you, we'd be in terrible danger.
You're welcome, guys.
Raphael, this, however, gets on Raphael's nerves, and he accuses Leonardo of always sticking up. That Splitter is the one who stops their argument. I can't imagine their argument being like how it is in the 90s movie.
Yeah.
Because it is actually one of the more emotional parts of the 90s film, and I want to show it. And of course, Splitter stops their argument in his tracks. Then it cuts to Karai and Shredder staying on top of a rooftop, followed by All the foot ninjas, while she's holding up a screen with a red dot right underneath where they are standing back at the sewer lair. The Turtles and Splitter have started packing while Michelangelo is trying to cheer Raphael up with little success at one point. I could imagine this scene kind of be like one of their fights in the 2012 series.
Yeah.
Because at one point, Raph just says that they play. Mikey just says they should play Buck Buck while they did as kids. And Raph is like, this actually makes him smile for once. And he just says maybe later. But then Raph suddenly notices something on Mikey's shell as he picks it off and hands it over to Donnie, who freezes when he realizes that it's actually a tracking device by the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
This then leads to the same scene where the walls explode and out would come Shredder and his minions.
Right.
Then the last time. And of course, this would lead to an almost similar, identical scene between Shredder and Splinter.
Yeah.
Because I actually like that scene.
Me too.
And of course, there are some differences to this scene. There are some differences. Like this. Oh, here. And I can even. And my voice of Shredder may sound almost like a mix of the 90s film and the 2003 series. But I can try to sound like the 90s version more. I should have known I would find you here, Rat.
I always knew this day would come, Shredder.
Well, Derek. Well, you see, I have found something interesting.
And what is that? What is that? And what is that? That's quite interesting that you found.
You know Hamato Yoshi and how he died along with his family.
You know I am Hamato Yoshi.
Well, I have found out you are those turtles are the reincarnations of Yoshi and his sons, thanks to Stockman.
You suck. Suck. You took things away from me years ago. My wife, my life, and my son.
You just don't get it.
I get it. Why do you have to persist in this insanity?
Because it's your fault that my brother Nagi died.
I am sorry for your brother. I'm sorry what happened to your brother. I'm sorry what I did to your brother. The attention was not hers.
We shall make this personal then.
Not me. You take my sons from me. You took them once from me years ago. You will not take them away from me again.
Well, like I said, I took your life away back in 1984.
Now I'm going to take you for the most precious thing you care about most.
Now I know some of you may be thinking, why are we establishing the fact that Shredder killed Hamato Yoshi and his family in 1984?
Well, because that was the year. Well, because that was the most important year.
Yes, and when did the Turtles made their debuts in the Mirage comics?
1984.
Yes, it is meant to be a reference to when the Turtles were first created. And of course, the two would engage in the fight like they did. That scene stays the same because the fight scenes were some of the best parts of this movie.
I was.
The fight scenes in these movies in these movies are never bad. Never ever.
Never ever bad.
Meanwhile, the Turtles, they're not faring that well. They're losing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want because the turtles, if they were standing a chance, they'd be too OP.
Yeah.
And I hate the idea of overpowering the turtles like that.
Me too.
Because it makes them Gary Stews.
Yeah.
So they are losing.
Right.
And of course, Splinter knows about what's happening and tries to break up his fight with Shredder, which turns out to be a big mistake because because Karai would behind him would throw a bunch of shurikens and Splinter can he dodges them pretty good. He dodges a good amount of them, but he still gets himself wounded by one or two of them once he joins the Turtles. The tide seems to change in their favor. Until Karai attacks again and Splinter's consciousness starts to slip, which gives the Foot Clan the advantage as Splinter is being up. Kind of like how like how Shredder beat up Leonardo in the 2003 series.
Yeah.
This causes Raphael to go into a rage and he attacks everyone with everything he has. Unfortunately, his rage makes his attacks predictable, and he is able to barely get disabled until Leonardo steps in, helps Raphael to get to Splinter's safety. For once, Raphael doesn't protest and immediately grabs Splinter, escapes as quickly as possible, but the other turtles get caught! One by one!
Yeah.
And of course, the unconscious turtles get dragged off, as Shredder would give out one final order to have their home blown up!
Yeah.
And then they leave. Later that night, April is doing the dishes until she hears someone knocking on her window. This happens to be Raphael and Splinter.
Yeah.
And of course, she lets them in. And of course, Splinter's unconscious. Raphael puts him on the couch. And so Raphael has to stay here in the meantime. The next scene has the other turtles, which shows all three of them waking up in glass boxes and on a facility. That scene will remain the same. They didn't notice Eric Baxter Stockman standing before them with a sinister look on his face. He then explains to the turtles that he had assumed that the original formula used for the mutant was ineffective, but now he can see that all he needed was a bit of patience, and more importantly, he now has what he needs to work on a more perfected mutagen formula. Once that one will work more rapidly, Mikey asks how he's going to get it, and Stockman just says, by having their blood drain all the way until they fall unconscious, but just before they die.
Yeah.
Stockman smiles and orders to have them transport to their cells so they can recover and have more of their blood drain. Back at April's apartment, Raph gets out of the shower after April forced him to spend hours in there from living in the sewers for his entire life.
Yeah.
April is tending to Splinter, who was still unconscious on her bed. The two of them sit on the couch where they have a heart-to-heart moment about their lives. April tells Raph about how devastated she was when she heard about the news of her father dying in the lab fire, and now she still hasn't been able to move on past it. Raph in turn counts all the times his brothers annoyed him in different ways, whether it be Leonardo buzzing him around, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And there is the worry that the turtles might be dead by now. The next day, Stockman shows up, still recovering the turtles to Orokusaki as he keeps talking. He then offers to sell the turtles and read to Shredder, which Shredder finds interesting.
Yeah.
And this would be more of a free thing on top of the money. He already promised him, Orokusaki, that would, of course, tell Stockman he will consider after he has tested the capabilities himself. The same night, the turtles wake up to find their glass cell doors open with their weapons lying in front of them. While they are initially suspicious. Hey, our weapons. How did they get there?
Oh, I don't know. Let's just grab them and get out of here.
Yeah, I agree, Mikey. I'd rather get out than die.
Me too.
They then decide to escape as quickly as possible until Shredder appears at the end.
Yeah.
He blocks them. And of course, we get this scene. Whoa, whoa. You think you're going out that easily? I don't think so.
Get out of our way, Shredder.
Why should I?
Because we need to get back to our brother. Because we need to get back to our brother and our master.
Huh. I will fight you. If you win, I'll let you go. But if you lose, you will go back into your cells.
Fine.
And of course, Leonardo, Donatello, and Mikey would all charge at Shredder, but like in a delete scene from the 90s film, he defeats them all by using shurikens.
Yeah.
And of course, Shredder keeps up his end of the bargain. At the same time, Stockman walks in to congratulate Shredder for putting up a good fight. Back in April's apartment, she and Raph are watching the news, anxiously waiting for clues as to where the turtles might be after getting nothing. They overhear Splinter waking up in the other room. Instantly, they rush over to greet him as he opened his eyes for the first time. Splinter's relieved to see both of them alive, but Splinter would ask where the others are, quickly realizing what happened. Splinter remained silent until he admits to Raphael that he was also wrong while April was right, that they will never be truly safe as long as Stockman and the Foot Clan are still about. Thus, the three agree to find Leo, Donnie, and Mikey as fast as possible. Back in the facility at night, Leonardo tries to count his mind by meditating until he hears somebody enter from the outside. And of course, that is Shredder. He angrily would ask what he's doing, and to his surprise, Shredder compliments him and his brothers for their fighting skills. He explains that while they own the he offers them a position in the Foot, along with Splinter and Raphael. But Leo refuses, which makes Shredder leave the room. And the next morning, April is typing away at her laptop by using the restore data from the stick that Donnie gave her. She summarizes that the most likely place they have been taken is Stockman's private estate, further up north. However, until they have further evidence, she recommends not traveling there. Fortunately, she has a contact at TCRI, who she contacts. Luckily, her contact informs her that Stockman has ordered several unconscious, unusual chemical opponents to be delivered to his estate. April thanks her contact, and thankfully, she gives him a call asking for the lift, just like in the original movie. Vern thinks that April is asking about and accepts. Back in the estate of Stockman, his scientists are able to create a perfect duplicate of the original mutant formula thanks to all the blood they've extracted. Stockman then tells Shredder that their job is pretty much finished and offers to have the turtles enthusiased properly this time if they continue to resist. Shredder refuses, saying that the Foot have invested too much money into the project all those years ago, and he instead would like to keep the turtles alive a little longer just in case the fourth one and the rat decide to rescue them. The scene where April gets into Vern's van plays out the same, with Raphael revealing himself, and Vern also knows that Splinter is in the back before driving off. That seems the same. Back at the estate, the Turtles are approached by Shredder one more time, who says that he has plans to have them transported to his base of operations so they can be initiated to the Foot properly. Leo and the others naturally refuse and ask why would he even consider, since they partially and Shredder would say that they partially own their existence to the foot, which makes them part of it, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
And the fact that Stockman is giving them to the foot for free, but he promises that if they accept they will not be treated like properly, but as equal members within the ranks of the foot. And of course, they make a plan to infiltrate our other four heroes make a plan to infiltrate the essay by having Raph swim through the sewage system, by navigating down the river and going up one of the pipes, yada yada yada. He gets in there, crawls on the ceiling, avoiding the guards until he reaches them, yada yada yada. He goes into the building, reaches the underground from where his brothers are kept. After a heartfelt reunion, Leo tells him to get out while he still can. Raph ignores him and breaks them out where they gather their weapons and escape the elevator with the best part of the movie, the rap scene, MC Mikey. That's the same until he reached the top floor where an all fight with the guards breaks out in a sequence similar to the hallway fight from the movie. Oh boy. Afterwards, they continue their escape until they come face to face with the Shredder. And just like in the actual movie, he proceeds to mercilessly beat the crap out of Raphael to the point where he chips a piece off of his shell, along with the other turtles. Shredder orders them to be transported while April reaches Stockman's office, but Baxter initially recognizes her and has her surrounded by bodyguards. Stockman grins in front of her until Splitter jumps down from the ceiling and takes out all the bodyguards and beats Stockman to the ground and asking Stockman where the turtles are while slowly tightening his tail around Stockman's neck. Surprisingly, Stockman seems quite calm about this and points out the window where he sees a truck driving away instantly. Both April and Splitter realize what's going on, with Splitter then pushing Stockman. And of course, Splitter tells initially shocked April to gather all the evidence while she still can, and he goes after his sons. April compromises herself and points out that there are more guards are going to arrive at any moment and that she can't fight them without him. And Splitter reluctantly agrees and joins her. April thanks him and swipes Stockman's coat that fell out of his pocket and onto the floor. With it, they could get past the entrance to the facility where the turtles were held. Splitter finds them, but yeah, the turtles are gone, but they take pictures of the facility after they travel back to save them. They get back into the van, and of course, she tells Ver that they need to get back at the truck, carrying the turtles. One of the drivers of the other vehicles notices for the van driving at full speed behind them. Once it is right next to it, Splitter leaps out of the window and climbs on the roof and starts jumping from car roof until he reaches the truck and knocks out the driver. This causes the truck to veer off course and into the snowy woods like in the actual movie. That scene will be the same. This causes the truck to shake violently until the container door opens, giving Splitter the chance to enter after another reunion. Splitter breaks them free, hands the trolls back their weapons. Yeah, their weapons would be taken. I forgot about that. They all rush to jump out of the container, only to find out that every other vehicle is chasing them down the hill, which proceeds the long action sequence where the turtles and Splitter fight a small army of foot soldiers. That scene's the same because it's one of the best fight scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
On top of the truck, without the element of surprise that they had their attack is nowhere near as successful. That's until the Shredder and Karai leap onto the truck from one of the other vehicles. While they are initially confident they can win, the two quickly turn the tide of the battle. Leonardo is locked in a duel with Karai, while Shredder is able to land a strong blow to Splitter that sends him flying from the truck onto the snowy ground. Side note, this does not kill Splinter. This does not kill him.
Yeah.
We're saving his death for later on.
Right.
And during the heat of the moment, Raph lands a sneak attack against Karai, which also sends her flying up the truck. Donatello notices that the truck is heading straight towards a cliff. With this in mind, both the Turtles and Shredder fight each other with everything they have. The fight would be like the final battle in the actual movie, because it was a cool fight. But neither of them are stopping until the other is dead. While Shredder does knock some of the Turtles off, it just like in the actual movie, they utilize their shells shells as makeshift shields and catches back up to the truck by using the parts of the environment as ramp. But despite their resourcefulness, they still can't beat Shredder, and the cliff is getting closer and closer with each second at that moment. And unlike in the original movie, it is Raphael who suggested that they take out Shredder by playing Puck Puck. Donnie then agrees that if they're going to go down, they can at least take the Shredder with them. And like in the actual movie, they execute their last chance with Raph kicking Shredder in the face, which ends with themselves flying up the cliff with the truck. And just like in the original movie, there's that long tracking shot of Shredder falling down until he hits the ground with a crash.
Yeah.
And we're all left to wonder, is Shredder dead?
No, he's not dead. He's still alive.
But this is more of an audience shock thing. He's not dead. This is more of a, did he really die? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
April, Splinter, and Vern finally reach the edge of the cliff. When they reach it, they initially assume that the Turtles are dead until they look down and see that they are able to land on the side of the cliff when they proceed to climb back out. Exhausted, they finally reach the top with Raph looking down the remains of the truck at the bottom. And like in the original movie, he gives out one triumphant cowabunga. After that, the movie will cut to April back in her office where her boss is waiting for her. April smiles and pulls a USB stick with all the data she had initially gathered, along with some more data she got from Stockman's computer. Back at the estate. And the next scene will take place in her apartment where the Turtles and Splinter are hanging out, and they're here to celebrate, to congratulate her on her story while they celebrate. And some footage shows that Stockman is arrested, and Shredder has not been found, which puts down everyone's spirit until April starts to play the footage she recorded in the lab. But before then, we have this almost similar scene to the 2012 series where Splinter is distant. And Leonardo asks, Splinter? You seem to be distant ever since we defeated Shredder.
Yes, Leonardo.
Why so?
I felt bad because I could have gotten a chance to finish him.
Yeah, his body was not recovered. I don't know if he died or not.
He might be so out there.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I think there's something you might like.
What is it?
It's the footage of us before we became who we are.
Footage?
Yes. And of course, they would see the footage April recorded of her with the Turtles in the lab as a child. And the final scene will be mostly the same as it is in the original. The Turtles say goodbye to April at the car park, and yeah. Movie ends the same. And that concludes my long-awaited rewrite of the 2014 TMNT movie. Finally, I could get this done and over with. At last. See you all later.